American Psychological Association states that playing violent video games is linked to aggression in youth. This applies to almost everyone because video games are such a huge industry, and I can promise you someone in your friend group or family has played a video game or some form of video games. The purpose of this speech is to inform you about the risks of unsupervised video game playing in youth, what cases video games can be good, and how to identify aggressive behavior from video games. So, go ahead. Some of the most popular games promote violence now, such as games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. A PhD professor from the University of Connecticut, Roy McLaughlin, states in violent video games they're not only promoting shooting and killing, but sometimes the controllers are even weapons. So you can go to the next slide. I know in like some of the hunting games you're using a gun to kill the animals. So it only kind of helps for children that are young. Kids as young as 10, you can go to the next slide, are playing games such as Grand Theft Auto, which promote sexual violence, theft, and killing. And kids that are this young are not able to cope with kind of what they're taking on, and they're finding a struggle to identify a connection between where they realize that this is just a game and this is real life, which is causing a lot more violence. Now, you can go to the next slide. John Rosilio, he's the CEO of EA Games, or Electronic Arts. It's a very popular gaming industry. They make games like The Sims and stuff like that, but they also made the game like Army of Two. He said that this is just a perception issue, that parents need to be more aware of what their children are playing and the repercussions of games that have a mature or a higher rating. He said that it's not the nature of the games, it's the nature of parenting and not doing their job at making sure, their 10-year-olds aren't playing a game that, is called Grand Theft Auto. It's about stealing things and that kind of stuff. He also states that it's important that you have the maturity level, and sometimes a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old might not have the same maturity level, even in the case that sometimes the 15-year-old is more mature than a 17-year-old. So he said that it's all about perception, and the parents need to be more aware of what their kids' mental level is, and that way they can kind of be the judge. Also, he promotes limiting the amount of time that kids play games. Some studies have found that there are 12-year-olds that are playing games such as Grand Theft Auto for more than 6 to 8 hours a day. And with this, they actually are spending more time playing their video games than they are doing stuff outside of the video game world. And that also comes back to that realization that students or young kids are having an issue finding a difference between when they're in game with their friends online or random strangers online, and when they're at school, which increases issues with behavior in schools and that kind of stuff. You can go to go back, I'm sorry. News Health states there's a link to higher aggression, but they don't think that there's an actual link to active aggression. Now this might seem like, oh, okay, if there's no real threat that they're going to be, mean to somebody because they played games, it's not necessarily the biggest issue. Whenever you have bottled aggression, it creates stress. Stress is also a big issue. So students young kids that are going through these that have to deal with, they have a higher heart rate when they're playing games, when they have, when they just killed somebody in a game, it's kind of thrilling to say, in a game like Call of Duty where it's online and you're facing other people. But what this can do is create their ability to not process their emotions properly, which can actually lead to depression and that kind of stuff. So just because they don't necessarily act out in an aggressive manner, it's actually causing a higher rate of depression and stuff in younger kids. Go to the next slide. But there is a good amount of video games. Research from Mike Rosser shows that surgeons that play 2 to 5 hours per week of video games are 25% quicker and 26% more accurate when in surgery. Video games are proven that they increase hand-eye coordination, as well as the ability to micro-focus and really stay into one objective. Playing too much can have bad benefits, but in the case of surgeons, you want them to be playing a lot of video games because they are indeed more accurate. So, in closing, if you do know someone that has a hard time with, playing too much video games and they're getting mad or frustrated or hitting things, that's a good time to take a step back, go out and do something, kind of as Nate said, go release some of that bottled aggression, because video games aren't always the best way to relieve stress, because sometimes they can actually cause more stress. So, that's all.